we have today, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are in the Four Corners Project studio in Beit Shemesh, Israel, coming to you live. And I hope everybody's doing well on this Wednesday night, June 30th, last night in June. We have a special guest in our studio, the heart of the Shlock Rock Tower of Power horn section, the trombone player, David Bogner. Dave, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be
here. It is our pleasure. And we have a shout out from Judy Hertzfeld already. Our associate producer from Clifton, New Jersey, is chirping in that everything is A-OK in terms of our sound. And we just want to say how honored we are to have you in our studio because, you know, as they say in the Blues Brothers, you were the heart and soul of the horn section of the Shlock Rock horns as we went through the years.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I've heard you over the years describing, you know, the Shlock Rock 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and I kind of sort of covered all those eras.
You did. I never had another trombone player. It was you. You were the only trombone player. And what's amazing is you are now, not only did you play with me in America, but you moved to Israel. You're here, you live in Israel, and you play with me in Israel.
Yep.
And we've had some great stories and some great adventures, which we're going to get into. But I just want to before we start, let's talk to the audience and tell you guys that if you're watching from Facebook, make sure you give us a like and a thumbs up and a good comment. And if you're watching us on YouTube, either the Shlock Rock YouTube channel, the Four Corners Project YouTube channel, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and leave a good comment. It's always great to hear from you guys. If you're watching us on Twitter, at Lenny Solomon, make sure you retweet. And, of course, our new LinkedIn, we are broadcasting live on LinkedIn. It's an amazing thing. And we've been getting great numbers from LinkedIn. You know, David, in our 122 shows before today is a special show. It's show 123. There's some sort of symmetry to that.
You're not going to do gematria on me, are you?
No, I'm not doing any gematria on you, but I want to say that what's interesting about 123 is how many horns are there in the horn section? Well, sometimes there are 4, but usually it's 3. It's usually trombone, sax, trumpet. And we, of course, have interviewed Danny Block, the original sax player. It is true. You do go across all Shlock Rock 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. You were already playing with us in the as you told me, in the mid to late 80s on NCSY Shabbatones.
Yep.
So we've had a lot of experiences.
I think the first time we met was for Seaboard Regional. And I met you and Itchy Lowenbrown, Alav Shalom, on the same day.
Oh wow! So that would have been 1986, 87. Was it Camp Louise? Did we play Camp Louise, or was right? Those were amazing times. I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, that the workers broke my teeth on NCSY and on Gypsy, the Jewish Public School Youth Organization, where I would go into public schools and play shows to the kids, and also the NCSY Shabbatonim that I played from 81 to 88, and you joined us. You were playing also in New Jersey region, right? You were part of the New Jersey Chevra.
Right. Now, it was actually because of that I came to you. I was at YU, and I'd been doing Jersey Regional for a year or two, and I think you must have called up Jordan Hirsch and said, I need a horn player for Seaboard, and he said, okay, I got this guy, Dave Bogner, I want you to call. And I think he's the one that made the connection between us.
And that's what it was. And now we have to, of course, interview Jordan Hirsch. He's going to, of course, get on my case. How come I haven't interviewed him yet? And last week I interviewed his brother, Dave. Now, how did Dave join the band? Because of Jordan.
Right. I actually I caught part of the seance last week where you were doing the, Dave, we hear you. Are you there, Dave?
Yes. That's right. We were talking to a picture a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Now, if I wasn't so used to doing these shows in front of the live stream camera where, like, anything goes, I could have gotten ruffled, but no. not 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 last week, and we don't get ruffled. Whatever happens, we just keep on going. We bulldoze our way through. So let's first say a couple of things. Number one is this: it's Minnesota North Star night, which is, as you could see, it's the throwback hockey night. The Minnesota North Stars. How you? It's true. How do you fail as a franchise in a hockey state like Minneapolis and Minnesota? Um, it's beyond me, but they didn't make it, and they ended up moving to Dallas and became the Dallas Stars.
Yeah,
And
it's a
then
big hockey town, Dallas.
what about Dallas?
It's a big hockey town.
It's not actually a big hockey town, but it is now. It is now. And the
Mm.
Minnesota North Stars, the Minnesota franchise is called the Minnesota Wild. But this is the original North Star jersey from 1967. And they were one of the 6 new expansion teams as the NHL went from 6 to 12 teams. Okay, so, and I don't have a Minnesota North Stars cap, so we're wearing a Minnesota Twins cap today just to kind of stay with the Minnesota theme. Now, and we give a shout out to our Minnesota people, Annette Walder. I'm sure she's watching from St. Louis Park in Minnesota. Okay, so let's now talk a little bit about Dave Bogner and his background. Where did you come from? What city did you grow up in? And what was your musical background?
Okay, well, those are a lot of questions. First of all, I have a couple of. I first have a confession to make. Um, when I first started like hearing about Lenny Solomon, before I even knew who Lenny Solomon was, you were doing like Gypsy and stuff like that, and somebody was telling me, "Oh yeah, there's this guy. He does these parody things, kind of like Weird Al, but like with a Jewish theme." And I was convinced you were doing it cynically. I was absolutely 100% convinced you were doing it like cynically to kind of like poke fun at people who were like, observing. Because I didn't know you. I didn't know who Lenny was. And the first time that I met you, I was like, he really means it. It was like, it was,
Yeah.
it was just an amazing revelation to me. But anyway, back to your question. I grew up, or I was born just a couple blocks from Yona Lloyd. I'm a
Oh.
Long Beach, Long Island boy. I was actually born there. I didn't live there for long, but born in Long Beach Memorial Hospital. And I grew up mostly in New Paltz, San Diego, and then by the time I got to junior high school, I was in Connecticut, and I did the rest of my growing up in Connecticut. Um,
And
but
what city in Connecticut were you?
Trumbull, Connecticut, which
Trumbull,
is
Connecticut. So you're the
Gary
second
Wallen,
Schlocker.
right?
The
A
se-
Gary Wallen connection. Like
Gary Wallen is a Trumbull, Connecticut boy, and he actually sends regards. He left you a note which says, "I love Bogey from Gaz." He
uh,
was actually, now you can't see that, it's all white, but whatever. I
well,
could I could actually get up and go to the camera, but we'll just assume that I did.
the connections that exist within the Shlock Rock family are just they're amazing to me. It goes so far beyond the normal Jewish geography. I told you I like when I was like a baby, I was just blocks away from Yona Lloyd's house, and
Yes.
I grew up. Like my formative years in junior high school and high school, I lived in the same town as Gary Wallen's family. Yona and I obviously reconnected years later through you. We ended up being on the same Aliyah flight. His wife and my wife were both pregnant on that flight, and I mean, it's just what are the odds that that could happen? The other connections are like first of all, Gary Wallen. His daughter is like a second daughter to me here in Israel. Like she's very close with our family, and my daughter and Tali are very close. And Mark Skyer, the bass player, although I didn't
Yes.
know him terribly well, when his older boy was here in Israel, he also became kind of a Ben by it and spent a lot of time in our house for Shabbatot and things like that. It's just really,
It's
it's just.
unbelievable. It really is.
Mhm.
I've developed this philosophy that the souls that come down to earth are like a group of souls that travel together, and I think that certainly our generation, which you start with, let's go Shmuel Ramras and Jonathan Rimberg, Avrami Weisberger, Shmuel Wasserman, Oliver Shalom, all the guys, Mark Infield, myself. and everybody else. I don't want to leave anybody out, but we all traveled together. We all came down here, and it's so unusual to find people that do music for a living, you know, and that's what we did in our in our American days. And what we're doing kind of now, although now I'm not even really doing music for a living. I'm doing music, but the living is coming from God in mysterious ways.
You said that.
You know,
Yeah.
so the thing is that I used to think that, oh, it's me, it's the power, it's the Shlock Rock, and we're making a living, but really it's a God provides our income. We're not going to go there. We'll save that for another time. But I do think that we were all connected, and we came down to earth, and our souls are all, we interact. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah. So getting back to your question, I like every Jewish kid playing piano when I was in first grade and second grade, and had to take piano lessons and do the practicing. And although I enjoyed the piano, I never really took to it. And then like second and third and fourth grade was kind of like this series of instruments that like I tried out because I liked music. I just didn't particularly like the piano, and I tried upright bass, played that for a year and a half, and then two things happened. My parents, the Leonard Bernstein young persons concerts, where he would like have these concerts that were geared towards kids, and he would like feature different instruments. So I heard the trombone at one of these things, and then within like a week, I was listening to the radio and I heard "Spinning Wheel" by Blood,
Oh,
Sweat, and Tears, and
right.
that trombone sound. I went, I want that. And the next week,
Wow.
hooked me up with trombone lessons, and I never looked back.
It's unbelievable because I chose accordion. You chose trombone and I chose accordion. And it's very, very funny because David Hirsch, last week we were talking about it, he chose tuba. He was a tuba player.
Right.
And so it's how we picked our instruments. But Spinning Wheel, that's an amazing song.
Yeah.
What goes up must come down. That's a great song.
Yeah. And when I got back from Israel in 1985, I'd spent a little over 2 years in Israel, going to Hebrew U, and I hadn't been in the dorm at YU more than a week or two, and I don't know, like obviously this is before cell phones. I don't even know if I had a phone in my room at this point, but somehow I got a message from Jordan Hirsch. He heard that there's this from trombone player YU. I got to figure out who he is. Now, how did he know about me? Because Jonathan Rimberg knew about me because I'd been dating Jonathan Rimberg's ex-girlfriend when I was in Israel. You see how all these little connections.
Yes, I say there's a connection everywhere.
And Jonathan Rimberg, years later, ended up being one of the people that introduced me to my wife. I mean, he dated her before I dated her. So it's like, it's crazy, the connection.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's really unbelievable. So, but we're jumping ahead to 85, and I want you to tell me, because you have a very, very, let's call it eclectic background.
There's a word.
In terms of like, there's nobody in my band or in my circle that did what you did, which is, am I allowed to say it? You became a Navy SEAL.
Well, let's back up to high school.
Okay.
I was arguably the worst student at Trumbull High School. We had a graduating class of 750 people. I was dead last. Like the guy after me didn't graduate. So that gives you an idea. I was the absolute worst student, but I was really into the music. I was like in every music class and band class and jazz band. And I toured Europe with the University of Bridgeport Jazz Band when I was a junior in high school. I was really very into the music, and I wanted to make a career out of music. And my parents were not having it. They were absolutely adamant. No, we want you to have a normal career and make a living and not starve. And when it came to, I was a junior, I wasn't looking at any like schools except music schools. I applied to Berkeley and I applied to Juilliard, and I got into both of them. Didn't get any kind of a scholarship offer, but I told my parents, I'm going to Juilliard next year when I was a senior in high school, and they said, okay, if you really want to go to Juilliard, you're going to have to get a job and pay for it because we're not going to pay for you to go to a music school.
Ah,
That really, being a very level-headed person in high school, which I was absolutely not, I went out and I got myself a job. I came back and I told them I got a job, and they said, "Really? What kind of job did you get?" I said, "I joined the Navy," and which is every Jewish parent's dream. And it's the funny thing because when you think you're getting revenge on your parents, you're really getting revenge on yourself. I found that out very quickly then, but now that I have kids, like I see it from the others' perspective too. But I ended up spending 4 years in the Navy and got to see the world, got to do a lot of fun things and some not so fun things. I was stationed in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, for that was my home port for most of my enlistment. But I got to visit 46 or 47 different countries in
oh
four
my
years,
gosh.
and it was an incredible experience. And it actually, because of that experience when I was in the Navy, I ended up having the job that I have now, which I can't mention the company I work for, but I work in the defense and aerospace industry here in Israel. And so, like, there's a plan to everything. There's like, I see a higher power's hand in just about every good and bad decision in my life. So, and even in the Navy, I was doing music. I brought my trombone with me just about everywhere. There's a little Australian jazz pub in Hong Kong called Ned Kelly's Last Stand that every time my ship used to pull into Hong Kong, I would go there and sit in with the band, that kind of stuff. And I had a semi-regular gig with a club band in Honolulu. So it was a lot of fun. Music was never really
So,
out of the picture.
did you know that when you were joining the Navy that you would be away for 4 years? I mean, you.
Yeah, you sign up for 4 years, a minimum of 4 years for some jobs, 6 years for other jobs, and I was actually supposed to be in for 6 years, based on the training that I was going to receive, and they did kind of a technical snafu and didn't sign me up for that. There's some paperwork where they're supposed to sign me up for that 2 year extension, and when it got close to the end of my 4 year hitch, and somebody went through my service file and they said, "No, he didn't sign his 2 year extension." I said, "No, I'm not interested in doing the other 2 years." And they even offered me to become an officer. They were going to send me to OCS, and that would have required even more than two
Your
years.
life
And I
would have
said,
been totally different. Yeah.
"Yep." I said, "Nope." I already had my sights. I became observant while I was in the Navy, and I already had
You
my sights.
became observant while you were in the Navy? I
Yep.
didn't know that.
Yeah. I grew up in a reform family in Trumbull, Connecticut, and I'm the only to this day I'm the only observant one in my family for several generations going back, and it was just uh, I just kind of got interested in it.
And and not only did you become observant, but you actually moved your family to Israel. You did what I did. I'm religious from birth. For me, it was just one step. For you, you had to go from non-religious to religious, and then from religious, you had to move to Israel. Very not such an easy thing to do.
Well, it was kind of a no-brainer because I would only date girls who were also interested in living in Israel. I just
Oh yeah,
seen
me too.
horror shows with one person wanted to go, one person didn't want to go, and then there's heartache no matter what happens.
Yes, I also would only date girls who wanted to go to Israel or tried to, and that was one of the reasons that when I came to Israel, I said to God, "Okay, I'm ready to find the girl. Show me my wife." And I met her after 3 days in Israel. And the reason that I wanted to meet somebody in Israel is if they were living here, the odds are they wanted to stay here.
Yeah, well,
And
let's be truthful here. I don't know how much your fans know, but you didn't meet your wife. your wife met you, and you were ready to walk right past because you were Lenny Solomon, oblivious, and two or three of your friends had to club you over the head and say, "Hey, pretty girl, smart girl, smiling at you. Go back and talk to her."
Well, let's just say that I needed a lot of clubbing to settle down. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
So let's all right. So now we have set the stage. You did your Navy service. You became religious in the Navy. You go to Israel for 2 years,
Hmm.
and you to obviously learn more about your heritage.
Hmm.
I presume Juilliard went out the window at some point.
Yeah, once I realized I was going to be observant, doing like the it just I couldn't imagine a situation where I would be able to be observant and have a classical career, because I was a classical trombonist. I'd done jazz when I was in high school, but I didn't really have that much of a flair for it. I was more of a section player, and so I really wanted to be a classical trombonist. I figured that was the best chance of having a somewhat steady gig. Find a seat with a symphony somewhere and play for 40 years. And by the time I became observant, I said, okay, that's not going to work because they have all their concerts on weekends.
Right, right, and also you went to watch the Blues Brothers film, and when you heard John Belushi say the band, you thought he said the land, and so you had to come to the land.
Exactly.
I sorry, I just had to do that. One
Yeah.
of my one of my schlock ideas is to do a remake of the Blues Brothers, call it the Jews Brothers, and the goal is to bring the Jews back to the land because that's where we all have to be.
Yeah, but you couldn't
Everybody,
do it because who's going to play Aretha Franklin? It would be Kolisha anyway. So
right? That's true. That's true. We'd have to work that part out. So okay, so Bogey, now you are in Israel. You went to yeshiva. You came back. You went to YU. Jordan Hirsch gives you a call, and you start playing gigs. Now you were playing gigs with NCSY, and that's how we met
hmm
at Seaboard Region. By '91, you were already playing with me, but you were playing Shabbatones with me earlier. But you started playing Shlock Rock concerts, I think, in the early '90s. I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure that you played bar bat mitzvahs with me as
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
Because the thing is that for the people out there, the trombone, it's a, in order for me to have a six-piece band, which would be, actually, I would need a seven-piece band, right? It would be um, myself on keyboard, then drums, then bass, then guitar. That's four. Then trumpet, sax, trombone. Seven-piece band. You have to get a nice fee, or else nobody makes any money. We all want to get paid. So it was really very fortunate. You played with me the big shows though. You played Queens College with me.
I still that was like such an experience for me, that gig. It was, first of all, it was an incredible crowd, but like that was one of the few times that I actually got in a fight on the way to a gig.
I remember that you walked in and you said, "I just punched somebody out on the Parkway." I remember that. But did you only play one Queens College gig or did you play two?
I think only one.
You only played one because we did two. So I thought you might have been at both because we had 10 musicians, I think, at each one of these things. I'm sure you were one of the 10 unless you weren't available. We have a bunch of amazing. So let's jump to Israel because now you've played with me in Israel. We have the Sukkot festival. The festival, it's called the Rock and Soul Festival, and you played with us
Hmm.
many years on that festival where we're like 10 guys, whole full horn section, full band, and we're playing for like 10,000 people.
Right, in the park in Beit Shemesh. It was like
Yeah, the amphitheater in Beit Shemesh.
Mhm.
That was a lot of fun. And then we also had a gig at a golf course. You remember when we when we played that gig in Caesarea?
I'm
Or
trying to remember. It
so
doesn't.
it was a gig where we played a bar mitzvah, and it was in Caesarea,
Hmm.
and it was a British family. They came, and he flew his friends to Caesarea. He was a big schlocker. His kid was a big schlocker, and they loved
I
every.
do remember it. I do remember the gig now. I think I
because
even
you
I
drove
came
up on your motorcycle.
I came on my Vespa. I even remember that. Yep.
Yes, you came up on your motorcycle, and and we played that gig. That was unbelievable. Now, um, let me just do one big bit of paperwork, ladies and gentlemen. This is our 123rd show. I'd like to ask all of you to go to www.fourcornersproject.org. There's a banner right in front of your screen there. Make a donation, support the work of Lenny Solomon and Shlock Rock and the Four Corners Project. Daniel in Babylon is our musical that we will one day bring to the theater and the big screen. Support that work. It's amazing. If you have any questions, private message me, direct message me, whatever you want to do, public message me. And it would be great for you guys to make a donation. It's unbelievable, Dave. We've already been speaking for almost 30 minutes.
Wow.
You see how the time goes fast, but we cannot get off this. We cannot finish this interview until you tell the people about your beekeeping and your honey making.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not doing it right now. I had to take kind of a break from that because I travel a lot for work. I'm out of the country a lot, and it was something that I was not able to devote the kind of attention to it that I needed to. But when I retire, I'm absolutely getting back to it. I did it for a bunch of years here, and I started it because of my wife's allergies. She was allergic to a lot of the pollens and stuff like that in the early spring. She had it in the States too, and in the States, she used to go to an allergist and get shots every year, starting in like January, February, so that when things would come into bloom, she'd be good to go. And then one year, her allergist said, you live in Connecticut. Why don't you just go get local honey? It has all the pollens that you're allergic to. You start taking a teaspoon in the middle of January, and by the time things start to bloom, you're good to go. So she did it, and it worked. So when we came to Israel, I went looking around Gush Etzion for a local beekeeper, and there was nobody. So I said, okay, I'll learn how to do it.
That's unbelievable. So the things that you have done,
Look, life is full of opportunities to do new things.
it's really it's an amazing thing. And I actually have had your honey for Rosh Hashanah. It's we looked forward to it. We used to look forward to it.
Well, it wasn't technically. I kind of stole it from the bees, but
yeah. Well, don't tell me you watched the Bee movie and you took it to heart. I actually watched the Bee movie, and it was a cute movie. Jerry Seinfeld was in that movie.
Another thing that I wanted to tell you before we finish up today, because if I don't say it in this public forum, then what good am I? Do you know what song I walked down the aisle to when I got married?
No.
Your S.A.9.
Really?
Yeah.
That that Jillian walked down to that, and I walked down to Se'u Sha'arim.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just like I had the whole world of Jewish music that I could have chosen, and I certainly knew enough about it at that point because I've been in the business for years, and that's the one that really spoke to me.
Well, I'm honored. I want you to know that for me, this has been, people say, is it hard being a musician and the traveling? I would never trade this career in a million years. And the funny thing is, what we have in common is that my father, believe it or not, wanted me to go to Juilliard and get my master's in music and become a musician. And I looked at him and I said, "But Dad, how am I going to make a living?" And I became an accountant. Right? It was the exact opposite. You wanted to go to Juilliard and you actually got in, and then your parents said, "Now you got to get yourself a job." So you did, and you joined the Navy. And so there's this kind of dichotomy where you're doing the exact opposite that I did. And of course, I never went to Juilliard. I ended up going to Queens College, which had a fantastic music department.
Yeah.
And I was able to learn music there. But this is the greatest career ever. I would never trade it. It's not work. People say, "You ever going to retire?" No way. No way. We're going to be doing schlock shows, Bezrat Hashem. We're going to be doing schlock shows in the next 30, 40, who knows how many years. We're going to be over, we're going to be schlock shows at 100.
Except for you, I have not been doing music here. I mean, I play for my own enjoyment, but when I made Aliyah, I made a decision. In the States, I was working 3, 4 nights a week, doing gigs, and I had a day job, and I was never around for my kids, but I had to do it there because the music was what was paying for their private education. And when I came to Israel and I no longer had to worry about private school, I said to my wife, why would I, like I enjoyed music, but I really enjoyed the hang. But why would I be out of the house and miss my kids growing up if I have a choice?
That's
So
right. That's right.
I just turned 60 last week, and I promised myself that sometime this year I want to try and do a recital. So I've been working on a whole bunch of classical pieces. So if Corona ever lets us actually have